and welcome back to Of a Certain Age, Living Out Loud. I am your host, Kodi Maurice Doggette, alongside my partner in all things. Hi, Steve V. Rodriguez. How are you
Hello,
doing today?
hello. I'm really good. Thank you.
All right. I love to hear your voice. Today we're talking about aging and all the programs that are available to us as we age with our wonderful guest, Bill Gross. I'm so excited for this conversation. He is so knowledgeable and so wise. Working for Sage, it is such an amazing thing, and he's just so much for the community. So we had a really great conversation. What do you think, Steve?
I agree. This was so enlightening for those that might be looking for programs. He is going to be talking about programs, of course, in New York, in Florida, but of course, they have online programs as well that people can check out. But I guess, it's something that we don't talk about probably because we think that we're going to live forever. We need to think about some of these things and have some ducks in a row, I think, as we do age. And, it's not like the old days where a lot of us have pensions and, Social Security. People jump around with careers. And it is something to think about that where is there going to be somebody that is looking out for us if we find ourselves needing not just financial things or places to live, but also community.
Yeah, that was literally what I was going to say, because that is the most important component that I see as far as older people are concerned, because unfortunately, it's a sad um, realism that comes about in the world, is that as we get older, we start to lose a lot of people that are close to us, and building that sense of community and having those types of bonds that really help us grow as a person, because you still have to grow as a person even into that even in older age. So I think that those bonds are what's really, really important. And of course, having that security.
Yeah, and we're living longer in many ways. And so you want to know that if I'm going to, even people living with HIV are living
Hmm.
longer, that maybe they didn't even think they were going to live this long. And what does
Yeah.
that actually mean if you are weren't planning on being on this earth that this long? And so these are really good questions that we're going to talk to our guest. And I also know, I don't know if I in our interview, but the one really good center that I want to shout out to, the LGBTQ plus center in Los Angeles, is one of the largest centers for the community, not just in the States, but in the world. And they have just launched a brand new property that is going to be, or I think they're launching it soon, that is going to be housing for our elder populations, apartments, and at affordable prices, that is really looking after people that may find themselves without a home, but it's giving them a sanctuary. And so it's as we get more information on that, we will definitely share that with our listeners.
That's so fantastic. Well, I can't wait to get into this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Bill Gross from Sage.
Well, we are really excited today, Kodi, because we have a special guest on our brand new show, Of a Certain Age. And we are joined today by Bill Gross, the Sage Program Manager. Let me just read a little bit about what Sage is, because I had it here. For 40 plus years, Sage has worked tirelessly on behalf of the LGBTQ plus older people, building off the momentum of the Stonewall Uprising and the emerging LGBTQ plus civil rights movement. A group of activists came together to ensure that LGBTQ plus older people could age with respect and dignity. Sage formed a network of support for LGBTQ plus elders that's still growing and growing today. SAGE, it's more than just an organization. It's a movement of loving, caring activists dedicated to providing advocacy, services, and support to older members of the LGBTQ plus community. Bill, welcome to Of a Certain Age. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yes. Now, you're the program manager over at SAGE. First of all, how did you get involved with SAGE, and what do you do there?
Yeah. I came to SAGE about 8.5 years ago. I started out running our Friendly Visitor Program, which is a program that matches a volunteer with one of our clients, someone who is LGBTQ and over age 60. And those volunteers go to their house once a week for social, practical, emotional support. So I ran that program for a while. Then I also took on running our HIV program called SAGE Positive, which is for people living with or potentially impacted by HIV who are older adults. And now I'm actually the director of special programs. So I oversee a whole bunch of different kinds of programs, both here in New York City and also a couple that are down in South Florida. Well, I can speak specifically about the LGBTQ older adult population as they age. For one thing, they're twice as likely to live alone. They're twice as likely to be single. They're 4 times less likely to have children, these particular generations of older LGBTQ plus adults. And what the impact that has as people age is that they need different types of caregiving. When we look at kind of the general population, we think of this vertical model of caregiving where usually a younger person takes care of the older person, whether that be a niece or a nephew or a grandchild or whatever. And that's not usually as available to our populations of older adults. With them, it's usually more of a horizontal caregiving where we're taking care of our own people in our own peer group, right? Which is an amazing thing. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, I think especially of the decades of the height of HIV where we were really taking care of our own peer group. It's an amazing thing. The issue that happens, though, is that as we age and as our caregivers age, suddenly there isn't necessarily someone who's there for us. So one thing that SAGE does is to create a different kind of caregiving network, both a social network where we can come together and come to an agency for programming, but also social workers, volunteers who come to the person's home, who can help to make them feel more supported, make them feel more part of a larger community.
So beautiful.
Yeah, I was watching, you have a great video on the website, and it shows one woman struck me because she had been in a long-term relationship with a partner, and she was talking about her partner, how she'd climbed all these mountains, and together they did all these great things. And then one day she woke up, her partner had got dementia, and then one day she woke up and then her partner passed away, and it just was a halt in her life. And now she was faced with this brick wall and what to do. And SAGE was there to kind of pick up and help her pick up some of those pieces. On this show, Of a Certain Age, sometimes we don't think about what is to come in the future, but is SAGE really like a program? Talk about some of the programs that can help pivot when you're faced with this brick wall that life offers you.
For sure. Well, as you had said, we've been around for over 40 years. We started being headquartered in New York City, and that's still one of our hubs. We're increasingly a national organization, so we have a whole bunch of national programs that can help and support people. One of those national programs is our SAGE Connect program, which is a phone buddy program. Right. So someone from wherever in the United States. I think there's actually just one state where we're not represented. I think it's just Wyoming that we don't yet have a participant.
Come on, Wyoming.
Step it up, Wyoming. But so an LGBTQ plus older adult over age 60 can be matched with a volunteer. Sometimes that's a person their own age. Sometimes it's someone much younger. Mm-hmm. But it's a chance to have a weekly phone call to kind of have that extra sense of connection and support. We started that program in the beginning of COVID because we knew that our populations were going to be especially impacted by the isolation and loneliness of COVID, because we already know that our populations are at risk for that just in normal times. But that's one of our national programs. But here in New York City, there's a whole bunch of, there's caregiving, there are special events, and then throughout the boroughs, we have 5 SAGE centers, which are senior centers, where people can go for nutrition, for exercise classes, for film classes, for language classes, discussion groups, as well as a daily meal. And so that's really a hub where people can congregate.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was also wondering about the mental health and self-worth issues that our aging adults, elders, they experience. So can you just kind of expound on that a little bit for me, please?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think ageism is such a real part of of all of our lives, whatever our age.
Oh, yeah.
And as we age, it's hard not to take that on and have some issues of self-worth when it comes to our value in society, especially as we retire and we don't necessarily anymore have that validation of the job, which is telling us, oh, I'm productive and I am doing good things.
Yeah.
And so I think one way that SAGE can help with that is by creating a community or offering up communities which can be accessed with these classes, with these programs. I think also that just nationally we have things like a 24/7 aging hotline where people can call in. It's offered in English and Spanish, but I think it's about 180 other languages that can be translated.
Nice.
And people can call in and ask for referrals to agencies that are near them, wherever they are, but also speak to a trained counselor about what's going on for them in their life. And if they need kind of more structured mental health support, they can also be referred to a therapist or something like that.
That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for doing this good work.
Yeah.
I know. Well, one of the things I think many of us don't think about is when we do get older, have we planned our financial future? What does housing look like for us? Do we even have a retirement fund?
Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of young people. But
are you coming for me right
well,
now?
no. So many of us. I mean, what does SAGE offer? Because, I was just watching something on the news about people don't plan in general, whether you're LGBTQ plus or not, for the future oftentimes. And all of a sudden you're faced with this, we're living longer these days. I don't know that many of us planned on living plus, to what we're seeing, which is remarkable. But what does SAGE offer in the wake of looking to your housing and financial future?
I think it's such a good point because that can really creep up on us. And we live much of our young adult life and our middle age thinking, oh, I don't really have to worry about this. I don't have to put money away for retirement. I don't have to worry about my housing. Here in New York, and I know it's a problem across the country, but I'm so familiar with New York. Someone's been living in a 6th-floor walk-up for the past 50 years in a rent-stabilized apartment, right? And that's great. But then suddenly they have some knee problems, which may almost render them homebound because they can't make it up and down those stairs anymore if they have trouble making it up and down the stairs. So a couple of the things that we can do, we do have a case management program, which can connect people to benefits that they qualify, that can help with food insecurity, with financial issues, making sure they're connected with insurance. And also if they have issues with housing, if they need help, we can refer them to services which can assist with that as well. We actually do have two, in the last 3 years, we've opened 2 welcoming, affordable elder care housing facilities in Crotona in the Bronx and in Fort Greene in Brooklyn, specifically that are LGBTQ welcoming.
That's
that.
amazing. That's
Yeah.
so great.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Sage Connect earlier.
Yeah.
What other volunteering opportunities are there? I imagine that's so rewarding, and that's something I'm super interested in right now.
For sure, yeah. Sage Connects. So Sage Connects is the Phone Buddy program, which is a national program. We've had a huge amount of volunteer interest, so much so that we're having a wait list right now. So
I got to go on a wait list.
Wow.
I mean, what would be great is if anyone knows an LGBTQ plus older adult who needs a phone call, refer them to us, because then we can start matching those volunteers.
Can I be first on a list if I bring somebody?
I'll see what I got connections. I'll see what I can do. But, here in New York, for instance, we have a volunteer orientation every week. And if you go to our webpage, it'll tell you more information. And that's things like, it is friendly visiting, which is the thing I started by talking about. That's the program I used to run 8 years ago now. But it can also just be stopping by one night and helping to serve dinner to our participants, or helping with a special event, or helping in the computer lab to show people how to log in, or something like that. So there's lots of opportunities out there. Also, nationally, there's something we call our Action Squad, which is SAGE actually now, and this is very different than it was in 1978 when we were founded. It has an advocacy program which really works at the federal, state, and local levels to advocate for issues that are specific to our populations. And so there's an action squad where volunteers can log in, find out more about sending a letter to their representatives, to share why this legislation matters to our communities, that kind of thing. So that's a national kind of volunteering effort.
That's so great. That's so interesting.
Well, Kodi, you and I were talking before Bill got here, and we were talking about working out and how sore we are, but we kind of hope that we continue to be able to work out as we get older of a certain age. What programs, because we all know loved ones, this was going to be your question, Kodi, but why don't you ask it?
My mom, I've watched her, my loved ones, all of my loved ones actually, I've watched them age, and as they age, I've watched their mobility kind of decrease. And you even mentioned it about going up and down the stairs and things of that nature. So I was wondering what program SAGE has as far as increasing mobility or just exercise in general.
Yeah, I mean, here in New York, at our SAGE centers, we have things like exercise classes, salsa classes. Oh yeah.
Here we go. Do we need to step in there? I actually want to learn salsa, so I do. But I mean,
you could come to one of our SAGE events. We actually have
we are of a certain age.
We are, darling.
By the way, is there a cutoff on age that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So SAGE primarily serves people 60 and up.
Okay, not quite there yet, but
not
getting there.
Not quite there. We do, for special populations, we do start programming at age 50. So people living with HIV, people who are veterans, and transgender population. We start some programming at 50 because those are historically underrepresented populations when it comes to social services. So, but in answer to your question, so yes, the salsa classes. We also have a walking group that walks around the city, and certainly if you're in other parts of the country, you can call our SAGE hotline, the national hotline, and they can refer you to these kinds of walking groups, exercise groups that are specifically for older adults.
Fabulous. Okay.
I love that, even though you're based here in New York, you have that hotline, you have resources that people can always look to, even though you're not quite there yet. Hopefully, we'll have other locations across the country. You said Florida, though?
Yeah. So I actually oversee two programs, one in Fort Lauderdale and one in Miami. Fort Lauderdale is a friendly visitor program, so a volunteer home visit program.
Right.
And then Miami is a case management program for our populations. You had talked about what happens when you get to a certain age and you're having maybe some financial difficulties.
Right.
The Miami program actually has an emergency fund program, which can help people with that extra month of rent that you didn't think you'd have to cover, or a hospital bill or a cable bill. So that's really exciting. We partner with, I think now it's 29 partnering organizations across the country, from Alaska to Puerto Rico.
Oh, nice.
That are agencies that do similar work to us, and we can support them in that effort of serving LGBTQ plus adults in their communities. And this is especially great in states and regions that don't otherwise really have much LGBT support in general, let alone LGBT older adults. To have a center in those communities that we can support is just an amazing benefit for those populations who then wouldn't have any other kind of connection otherwise.
Yeah, that's so great that you actually are out there and connecting with other states and able to, what's the word that I'm looking for? Coordinate. Coordinate with them and in order to service our community. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm so curious, what do you see as some core components to living a fulfilled life as you age? That was something I was wondering.
Yeah. It's something I was just talking about with my father the other day.
Oh.
So some of our clients are 100, 102, 105. Actually, I think our oldest participant at Sage currently in New York City is 105.
Wow.
And what I've found anecdotally, just watching these people as they live, is it's so important to stay engaged in something that you're interested in. And for one of our participants that was over 100, it was in making, I guess they're called dioramas, but they're the kind of dioramas that's in kind of a shoebox kind of, and you can arrange little things in that shoebox to form this beautiful picture.
Okay.
And that was his thing. And that was, to some degree, besides getting some exercise and some physical stuff, was what kept him engaged and kept him interested. And I just think that's so important. And that even when many of our participants eventually move into nursing homes or assisted living, if they can find ways of connecting with others and doing activities in those facilities, it makes all the difference. I think kind of the enemy of aging is just kind of sitting around watching television.
Oh.
It just doesn't.
That's my favorite pastime.
I know, you gotta break it now. A little bit is fine, but if you're spending your entire day doing that, which I think is almost easy to start doing, you just turn on the television in the beginning of the morning and it's just on. Yeah.
But companionship, I think, is such an important one. My mom is of a certain age and she watches a lot of TV, but she has a dog, which is a companion that she has to. Yesterday we were planning on getting the dog washed. She's like, he's stinky, and shout out to Myron, the dog, huge German Shepherd, and we got her that, and because she loves the companionship, and then reading is her other pastime. She reads a lot, so even if it's not because of COVID, she's a little bit afraid to really interact with a large group of people right now, even though people are going out and about more. Having some activities, I think, is so important.
Absolutely. And even if they're activities by yourself, though, as you said, having any kind of connection is great. And I would just encourage, when I talk to groups of people who are asking about older adults who maybe aren't older adults themselves, if you have someone in your community, whether it's in your apartment building or the person down the street who is aging, it can be so helpful to kind of offer yourself up as a resource. That doesn't mean you have to be pulled into being their like primary caregiver or something. But even just by waving at them and saying hi and having a 2-minute conversation,
carrying groceries,
that can be pretty important. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's so important too. My mom has that one neighbor down the street that they check in with each other all the time. They're the same age. She has another woman who looks at her light from her house and says, "I'm just checking in on you." Aww. And they, but it's that kind of, I don't know, community that we all need as we age. Otherwise, you're withering up. That's and I think that's probably the key to that 105-year-old guy.
Yeah,
my goodness.
Yeah, staying engaged. And the other thing is, I mean, I don't want to paint our participants as some kind of delicate flowers. I mean, these are strong, like people who've made it through a lot, some of them.
Yeah.
And some of them are really amazing at what they do. I mean, actually, many of our SAGE participants sometimes teach classes themselves at our facilities.
Get it?
So it's great when we can not only support older adults, but perhaps even be mentored by them. I mean, maybe they're the expert in something that would be great for us to learn.
Love it. Well, let's switch gears to something that we know from our other show a little bit more about, Tech's podcast.
Are we loosening up a little bit?
Yeah, we are loosened up. Let's talk about sexual wellness. But before we get into sexual wellness, and I know, Bill, you wanted to talk a lot about that, is you participated in an article recently, and the article was entitled What It's Like to Date After Middle Age. And I was reading it, I think it was written in 2020. And you said for older LGBTQ plus adults, the spaces that used to serve the gay community as meeting places for potential partners, such as gay bars, now don't always feel welcoming to older adults. And in fact, many gay bars have become something else entirely, more of a general social space, as younger gay people have turned to Grindr and other apps for hookups and dates. And it was a great article because the writer in general was talking about what it's like at a certain age to enter the dating scene. Mm-hmm. And if you are divorced and you're a baby boomer, because so many baby boomers, the divorce rate isn't what their parents' rate of marriage look like. And so how do you enter that? Can you just talk a little bit about what it's like to date after middle age? Not yourself, but what you've noticed.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
The clarification.
We're all getting there.
Yeah, we're all getting there.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, for sure. From what I've heard from many of our participants, it's, as you just said, that the bars no longer feel welcoming to them. That at one point it was a way to connect with other people, to connect with friends, but now they're looked on as the old guy over there.
No one wants to feel like the old.
No one wants to. Absolutely.
The old person. No.
No, and no one wants to feel not welcome or not attractive,
Right.
or like you're kind of this interloper, or there's lots of ageism, there's lots of homophobia when it comes to looking at older adults as kind of either pitiful or kind of pervert, kind of there with younger people, like what is he, and so the bars are challenging for a lot of our participants, and some of our participants have tried online dating, and I know that some of have had success with that. But what I used to, at one point I was running a sex and dating work for people living with HIV at Sage. And one of the things that we really explored was what it would be like to do more activities, do more communal activities that you feel excited about, in the hopes that you'll meet someone who also enjoys that as well. Mm-hmm. So for instance, I know one of my participants just started recently going on these gay walking tours here in Chelsea that go to the gallery, the various galleries.
Oh, I know that group. I've done it once before.
Yeah, me too.
They're open to everybody. But
totally, they're open to everyone.
To
yeah, they're open to everybody. I forget the man's name, but we'll shout out to him. And
they're super fun. Actually, I think there's more than one. Someone got the word that it's lucrative, and I think there's
well,
another.
You know what?
person.
That's good though.
That's
yeah,
how it works.
Yeah. So something like that. So that's the way he's approaching it, is that he loves art. And so he goes to this once a week and joins these walking tours that go to these different galleries, and then usually they go to the group of them go to dinner afterwards.
Oh, nice.
In the hope that maybe there'll be a match with someone.
Yeah.
But, so I think it's just putting yourself out there, and if you specifically can do it doing an activity that you enjoy, that's always more fun. I mean, that's what I found dating myself. So, I think it's true for any age,
me
right?
too.
Yeah.
And I mean, Kodi lucked out and found his partner on Grindr.
I know, right?
But,
of all places.
I'm gonna be doing these walking tours as I
want to go with you,
because I don't do well on the apps, and it's not my thing.
Yeah.
I do well going out and about, and there might be a time when I don't want to go to the bars as much anymore.
Yeah.
I'll go to the Monster, but
Sure.
But
and the Eagle.
Right. You work a lot. Right. The Eagle, maybe. Yeah. You talk a lot, and some of your work is with elder people and HIV and STIs.
Uh-huh.
And what's some of the things that people may or may not be looking out for? Maybe they're not getting the education, or maybe they already have HIV.
Yeah.
And they're, of a certain age.
It's interesting. I spent a lot of my early years, around age 20, I started volunteering as an HIV counselor. Mm-hmm. So I do pre and post test counseling, and basically, and then I was doing that professionally and spending all my time talking to people about the sex they were having. Mm-hmm. And I loved that work so much, because I think it can be so freeing, especially for our communities that don't necessarily don't go through the same kind of adolescence that the straight people do in terms of being able to talk about sex, kind of in that way with our peers, like at age 16, 17. And so many of us went through this kind of solitary, kind of secret experience.
Oh, yeah.
When we were in our teens. I mean, I'm older than the two of you, so growing up in the
Debatable.
Debatable.
I promise you. I'll bring out my driver's license.
We can compare. We'll have you whip it out later.
But in terms of those messages of HIV prevention and STI prevention, what I found, kind of given my background, is that it's best received at any age when you can approach it from the topic of sexual wellness. So that's kind of not wagging your finger at someone saying, oh no, when you have sex, you have to do this, you can't do this, you have to wear this, you have to, it's
Especially
more...
if you are of a certain age. Do you
God,
want
can you imagine
No, I
talked
couldn't.
down
being
Yeah.
80 years old and having, someone saying, don't do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And the fact is that, of course, those generations have heard that message a lot of what they can and can't do sexually, sometimes in well-meaning ways of like, these are ways to protect yourself, and sometimes in deeply invalidating ways of like, oh, you're bad because you have this kind of sex. So anyway, I think the best way to approach those kind of messages is through sexual wellness, and it's more about talking about what's working for you. And so a lot of the workshops I lead at Sage on sexual wellness are about what sex and intimacy are like as we age.
Yes.
Right? And when someone hits whatever age it is, but let's say if someone is 70 years old, like what is sex like for you now? And how is that different than it was at age 40, at age 20? Right? And what is better? And what would you like to change? And what is working and what is not? And it starts to kind of foster this healthy dialogue about, and this validating, hopefully, dialogue about what we like and what we don't. And if there are things that we don't like about sex as we age, because we know that there are physical functions that change for us as we age.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, the vaginal walls get thinner and there's less lubrication, so sex can be painful for the.
Yeah.
Sometimes there can be erection difficulties, or it's trouble maintaining an erection, or there are sometimes these things, and I think it's number one important to validate that can have an impact on people,
Right.
but then also find ways around that. And for older adults, if someone has arthritis and some sexual positions are painful, then what are other ways to go about it? And
It's breaking down those walls and saying that it's okay to talk about this stuff,
For
like we
sure.
do on our other show all the
yeah.
time. But what if you were new to coming out? I mean, you were gonna
Yeah, I was going to ask a
down-
question, but before I ask that, I was going to say that as you age, those challenges happen, but the sexual desire does not go away. So how do you handle those challenges with, as far as like the body and things of that nature, with the desire not really going anywhere?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I think part of this kind of sexual wellness programming, which, by the way, I mean, we started talking about HIV, but it's for all of our SAGE participants, whether
Right.
they're HIV positive, HIV negative, if they don't know their status. The primary reason for doing this programming is to create validating conversations, sex positive conversations, where I think the first step, in answer to your question, is being able to connect with other people about what is going on with you, about what is going on with your body, and maybe taking a little bit of the shame and the ageism.
Yeah.
Because our bodies change, from age 0 to 100 each year. I think it's more about the layers of shame that we put on ourselves when it comes to ageism. So if we are told by society that we are of less value as we age,
Right.
and we are less beautiful as we age, then of course these bodily changes that naturally happen are going to take on a different and heightened significance.
Just
of
become
like, oh,
heavier
here it
and-
goes. Yeah,
Right.
here it goes. I couldn't get it up for as long. This means I'm no longer desirable.
Yeah.
That sets
And
you
that's not
back.
true.
And that feeds
Yeah.
it's a
Exactly.
cycle.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
Vicious cycle. And I've been there. Well, going back to aging and coming out as when you're a little bit older, does Sage handle things of that nature? What can you tell me about how that is a struggle for people coming out in a later age.
Absolutely. I have had clients who lived, male clients who were married to a woman for most of their life, who have grown children, and who just in the past 5 years have come to terms with the fact that they're also attracted to men as well, or perhaps exclusively to men now. Also, I've had trans clients who are only now at age, say, 85, considering, oh my gosh, transitioning. And what is that like? And well, what if I did start hormone therapy at age 85? And let me talk to my doctor about that. So when you talk about coming out, it's both sexual orientation, but also gender identity of these different experiences. And hopefully our goal is at Sage to provide kind of a welcoming home for people at whatever stage they are in their process, to feel like they can connect with others and be validated in where they are right now.
That's so beautiful.
Right.
I love that.
Me too. You know, we talk a lot about how our bodies change. You were talking about things are different as we get older. What have you heard from maybe the handicap community, and what's their outlook on, can they still be sexual? I know many of them want to be sexual, but you look, maybe some people, there's a lot of prejudices towards people in a wheelchair, but they want to be sexual too, is what I would think.
Absolutely. And you've done such great homework. That's such a great question because whatever stage someone is in kind of assisted devices that they need to use, whether it's just a cane or whether it's a wheelchair or et cetera, there's often a lot of stigma that they and others associate it with that, right? And certainly, we have participants who are recently completely visually impaired, and what is that like to date when suddenly, after being sighted for most of your life, you're not able to see? I think there are practical solutions, right? So if someone is in a wheelchair or has some kind of chronic pain in areas of their body, there are ways to have a healthy and super enjoyable sex life that just require some adjustments, some physical adjustments, say. But then it also has to do with this feeling of, gosh, as you said, if I'm in a wheelchair, is anyone going to want me?
Right.
And I can tell you from personal experience with our participants that yes, we have participants in wheelchairs who have a very happy and healthy sex life with sometimes with multiple people
at a time.
Well, I'm not going to go into that.
Okay, you're
can't go into all the details.
I'm getting a little bit too personal. Sorry, that's my job. I
love that.
But I do think one thing that really requires is an amazing sense of being able to connect to other people and receive support, because that's a tall order sometimes to have the amount of self-confidence to say, no, I'm still hot.
Right.
Come and get it.
Yeah.
And I'm still here, and I'm still a sexual being.
For sure.
Life has just changed a little bit for me. I may be in this chair now, or I may be with that cane, but you're still a sexual being.
Yes.
And I think it comes down to communication too, and talking with people so that you don't retreat inwardly and wallow and feel sorry for yourself.
Oh yeah, I've been there before too, so I understand wholeheartedly how you can go down this vicious cycle, down this rabbit hole of feeling like you're not worthy. So it's so good that you guys are doing the great work out there that you're doing. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wanted to also tap into, because on our other show, Tags Podcast, we talk a lot about, and we're very comfortable about it now, getting checked for STIs. And again, it's not wagging your finger at somebody. I think at first, we've seen our show over 6 years grow, and at first, PrEP, I was somebody that didn't want to get on PrEP, and I was a little latecomer to it. But now it's so integrated into our show. But what if somebody is coming out, and without wagging their finger, but making them aware that it's wonderful to be sexually active, but you also, depending on the sex you are happening, can, probably want to get checked for this, or maybe get on PrEP, and maybe you are 70 years old, and that's perfect time to get on it too.
For sure. For sure. And just because we're approaching this topic from a lens of sexual wellness doesn't mean that you also don't give them the same kind of safer sex information that you would give to anyone, right? So you want to make sure that the people you're working with have correct information. And it was amazing to me coming to Sage. I think that, as I said, I had a lot of history of talking about sex with people, right? Yeah. But there was a bit of shyness coming to Sage because I didn't so much have these conversations with older adults before. And the shyness wasn't in talking about sex with older adults. It was about like, well, come on, surely they know everything there is to know about safer sex. Like, who am I to think I can give them more information?
Right, yeah.
But the amazing thing is that older adults, just like middle-aged adults, just like younger adults, have misconceptions about what safer sex is. And that is still super important to go over the actual facts of it. And then when you come to something like PrEP or PEP or U equals U, these are completely new concepts to
they
these
could have been in a
populations.
relationship for half their life and didn't have a need to talk about these things.
And things are ever changing and ever evolving.
Well, right.
So.
Absolutely. Or there may be people who were in multiple relationships throughout their life, but they perhaps are very strict condom users. And then to hear about PrEP, they might have feelings about that. Well, wait, what does that mean? Does that mean I don't have to use a condom? I use a condom and I take the medication? What is that? So there are a lot of conversations to be had with older adults. And the sad thing is, they're not really happening in the doctor's office. We find that many doctors, and I think it's because of their own ageism.
Yeah.
Just don't feel they don't feel comfortable having these conversations with their older adult clients when they should be, because some of our participants are having lots of sex. And it'd be great to have these conversations.
If we left it up to the doctors, everybody I talk to has such a narrow conversation with their doctor, their general practitioner, and they, like you said, they box you into this one category of what they think. 9 times out of 10 they're heterosexual, so they're coming from that lens, and it's just no. So we need these other resources.
Yeah. What do you feel like the disconnect is between talking to older people about their sex lives and things of that nature? What do you feel like is the disconnect, the what's the word that I'm looking for?
Just like missing element maybe that younger people are having, I guess.
I mean, from doctors, the missing element, why they're not talking about,
or even somebody like me that I can't talk to my mom about sex. Are you kidding me?
Well, I think you hit on it. I think it is that
I'm not talking to my mom about sex.
It's a bit mommy daddy issues of like, I don't want. Well, no, not that kind of.
I got hot for a second.
No, of like, personally, I think it's kind of normal not to feel completely comfortable talking to your parents about sex.
Thank you.
Right? I don't think, I don't think that's abnormal. But I think that does then sometimes transfer for how we talk to people our parents' age or our grandparents' age about sex. And there is that kind of level of discomfort at first. Although I will tell you, once you start talking to an older adult, by the way, who's interested in talking, we don't want to just make them talk about sex.
Correct.
But once you start talking and you realize that they're really interested in kind of talking about their experience, not in a kind of sexualized way, but in a normalized way of like, this is what sex is like for me.
Yeah.
That it's super actually comfortable for the person who's the provider, who's doing the talking, and that it can feel really rewarding and exciting to talk to someone, especially because we know that these conversations aren't happening all that often with older adults.
Wow.
I'm just curious, have you seen in the last several years with the onslaught of things like Silver Daddy's app or people using the term daddy, like we were just joking around with, have you seen a positive shift in how we look at our older generations from things like the term daddy and all these apps that are dedicated towards a certain community of a certain age?
I think perhaps I've been working at Sage for 8 years, so it's kind of during it was I think a little before that time that term kind of daddy and everything was started really being sexualized and used.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful that older adults are seen as sexual beings and desirable beings in that way, and definitely there are a bunch of our participants, a bunch of our clients who are having kind of generational relationships, sexual relationships with someone much younger than them, that are and romantic relationships that are much younger than them, both or either of those things. So yeah, I think that can only be a good thing to have that kind of opening of the sexualization of an older adult.
Yeah, I mean, the science is here. We can live longer. We have things we can take to have longer erections. Yeah. There's wellness programs like SAGE. So it's an exciting time, I think, to grow older. And we're really excited about SAGE and its longevity. And we'll continue to need it. Thank you once again to Bill Gross of SAGE. And people can go to sageusa.org. We are back next week with a brand new episode of A Certain Age. And next week, Kodi, we've got Susan Bratton. She's going to be talking about supplements and all things to keep us young and intimate. I know you loved talking to Susan, so we look forward.
Great.
Yes. Oh my God, she has so much energy. Well, we want everybody to rate and review us wherever you get your podcast of A Certain Age podcast, because it will only help spread the word. So rate and review us. Give us 5 stars if you like. And people need to follow us. Where should they follow us, Kodi?
On Instagram, of A Certain Age Pod. Like all of our posts, watch all of our content. We are out here trying to give you guys what you want.
And what are we doing, Kodi? We're living out loud.
Of a certain age.